Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you and peace to the rest of you. What I'm going to say to you now is not because of anything that was said to me online. It's because of conversations that have occurred in real life, some between people I know and some involving me. But one of the common retorts when any man says to black women what I've been saying and what many other guys have been saying of the Ibmore and Sisbem and MGTOW and Red Pill strain is, well, you must hate black women. And that's not the case. See, I did say earlier that I'm not going to go in on black men. And I explained the reasons why. It wasn't to be just biased or unfair, but I did explain the reasons why I wouldn't do it. It's not because there are no black men that need it. It's because those men are already getting it. And I also said that I'm not going to let up on black women in the name of race loyalty. And I've heard before in person, you must hate black women. I've only heard it once, but I've heard other guys being told, you must hate black women because of certain things they'll say that they want to see black women do. That's not what the case is. In my case, I'm going to tell you right now, sisters, no. And I mentioned in a recording previously that, I don't hate black women, but now I want to explain it to you a little bit more. I actually love and prefer black women of various nationalities over other races of women. The other women that can compete with black women, in my eyes, are women that are still black, even if they don't know that they're black. That's this, and if they don't know they're black and they're not happy with being black, then I don't trust them. In all honesty, I base it on what their people's relationship is to black folks that are unknown, that are known and unquestionably black, with no arguments. So I'm going to give you some game, black women. It's going to help you out. And I don't like to call it game because game actually implies deception in many cases, especially when it comes to what goes on between the genders. But I'm still going to put you up on some knowledge that can help you out. Black men are already discussing how we can be better to black women and better in the eyes of black women. And a lot of times we're discussing it when we need to sit back and say, no, we don't need to do anything. There are times that we need to say we got to do this, that, and the other. But there are other times we need to stop and say, no, we've done enough. It depends on which man, in all honesty. You got the men who shouldn't be discussing it for themselves, like what they need to be doing, and they've already done it. They've done everything that any white guy would have had to do to get with the black woman he's gotten with. That's real, except be white. And then you've got guys that don't do this, and they need to have these conversations. They don't look at anything they could be doing better, and they need to have these conversations. It's like a deodorant. The ones who need it the most don't use it. So I'm going to give you some knowledge that's going to help you out, black women. Now, I'm mostly talking to African American women because, like I said, I love black women of various nationalities. I do not have anything against African American women because of their passport and the land of their birth. As an African American man, it wouldn't make sense. And if I was not African American, it still wouldn't make sense for me to have a problem with them based on the passport and the land of their birth. It can only be based on things that they have done as a group. And I'm going to start by saying, to the black women that don't need this advice, i.e. to the ones that have the deodorant and use it, don't take offense because you're not being addressed in this per se, except for me to tell you one thing. If you are not one of the women that needed this advice in the first place, then you're one of the women from whom these women need advice, so please give it to them. Please spread it. And don't share it with white women. I want them to go through what they're going to go through. A lot of what I'm going to say are problems that affect Western women in general, white and black women, especially the ones who got the deodorant, so to speak, and who know this already and don't need the advice. Just share it with someone that does. Do not give it to white women. Please, please, please don't let them have it. They're going down the same path. They're just going a bit more slowly and with less noise than we are. Let them go down that path. These things that I'm about to tell you all about are traps that their mothers and grandmothers set up for you, black women. Let Becky fall into the trap her mom and grandmom set for her. Please let her go. I don't care if y'all grew up together. Don't tell this to her, because see, their men are already telling them this. And their men already voting with their feet. And in the white community, you got 15-year-old MGTOWs already. You got 15-year-old guys in high school saying, yep, I'm a young dude, I'm a virgin, my hormones all over the place. I still ain't getting married and I'm not getting involved with women. I'm just not doing it because it's too risky. I'm just going to have to live by myself unnaturally. I mean, that's what these dudes are saying. 15, that's what's going on in the white community. Let them have it. They deserve it. But for you, I don't want to see us go down the path that they're going down. They set certain traps up for us. They still going to fall into them anyway. Great. Fine. I don't want us falling into the traps they set for us. For once, I'd love to see a trap their parents and grandparents set for us be empty of us in the end and full of their own. For once. And whether that happens or not is up to you and how well you take what I'm about to tell you right now and share with the ones who needed it. And if you're one of those black women that feels like she doesn't need it and doesn't need no advice from no black man, that means you need this advice that I'm about to tell you. It's knowledge I'm going to tell you. But I'm going to tell you also this before I get started. Just like the title says, I'm telling you this out of love and preference for you so that you benefit and the enemy does not. I'm not telling you this out of hatred. So there are going to have to be some harsh criticisms. They're not because of some sort of hatred. It is for the same reason that you would tell your own younger cousin or kid when they need to hear something because they're going down the wrong path. Black women, your mating selection criteria is jacked up. There are no two ways about it. And if you try to deny it, then you're part of the problem, hands down. Guaranteed. No exceptions. If you say that your individual mating criteria is not jacked up, fine. Well and dandy. Again, you're one of those to whom this doesn't apply. So let it fly and share it with someone else. But I'm talking about the community. The things I'm going to be saying are general statements. The exceptions do not disprove the rule. Your mating selection criteria are jacked up. And they are the worst in the world of all women. White women have the second worst. White Western women, do have the second worst. They're right behind you. But like I said, yours is the worst. I'm talking collectively here. And I'm going to explain to you how this happened. How it happened to you and to the Western white woman. But again, let them go down this path. See, if you take a look at the superhero stories in these comics, they had an effect on movies later on that a lot of men and women saw. Although a lot of boys read comics, the movies were seen by adults and children, male and female alike, black and white, and everything in between. Batman did not have a love interest. He had to adopt a son and raise him to be Robin, because Batman was a regular human being, a rich and by some accounts a playboy, but no love interest was ever actually mentioned by name in a lasting fashion. In some cases, he did have one. Sometimes in some comics, but she never became as much of a staple and as permanent a presence as another one I'm going to mention. Now, the Flash. If you read the comics and he has a love interest, you know about it, and I don't. I don't read the comics. I don't remember the Flash having a love interest in the originals. Aquaman had a wife at one point and a son, but as we know. As I saw in the first issue, that was the last time he saw her. She flipped out. In the first issue that I saw, she flipped the F out because of a son that they had lost previously. There's more. There's more to this. Go through the list, and some of them do, some don't. I don't remember all of the names, but here's the thing. If you don't read the comics, you still know who Superman's love interest was, and that's Lois Lane. You, black woman, have been tricked right along with the white woman into a Lois Lane mindset. And what do I mean by that? Her mindset was jacked the F up. Her mate selection criteria was skewed and screwed up as well. There was Clark Kent. For all she knew, Clark Kent was a human being from Kansas, a regular man. She didn't know he was Superman, so therefore she thought he was human, right? He was a tall and strong human being, but he was a human. He's expected to bleed, feel fear, sneeze, get sick, go to the restroom, become hungry, become thirsty, grow weak at times. He's expected to do all of these things because, as far as she knows, he's human. He was tall, he was strong. He was definitely not a below average man compared to by human standards. But he was mild mannered and he wasn't cocky. And therefore, she assumed that he was a wimp and a pushover and a weakling. Superman, she knew, was not even human. She knew he was from some other planet with a red sun. He ain't human, but because he can fly around and stop bullets, and he was cocky, that was fine. He had the right to be cocky because he could fly around and stop bullets. So it boiled down to the fact that the reason she lusted after Superman, I mean lusted, let's call it what it is because he wasn't human. That's beyond bestiality. And you were tricked into this. She was making a blasphemous comparison between man and God and judged man by that. She judged Clark Kent by the fact that he was human and not godlike. She fell for that. Also, so too did the white woman. That's the mindset. Lois Lane became stupider after she met Superman because she started getting herself into situations from which she needed his rescue, boldly and recklessly, because she knew he could fly through anything to anywhere, pick her up and carry her off. That was why. She became less mature, less discerning, less wise, and reverted to a petulant childhood state because of her knowledge that such a man existed, even though he was not a man in the human sense of the word. You, black woman, can't afford that mindset. Real men don't fly. They don't stop bullets with bare skin. They bleed. They feel fear because they are vulnerable. They will grow sick at times. They will grow old, and they will eventually die on you and void their bladder and their bowels when they do die because they're human, just like you are. So this regular run-of-the-mill woman who bled 5 days out the month, at least like every other woman, still felt that somehow she, with nothing extra, deserved a god-like non-human from another planet. Do you understand how stupid that sounds? And that's exactly what the hell the Western woman in general has been tricked into. I'm just glad the white woman fell victim to it. Great. The sooner their families become unstable and their society reaches the level that ours does, and ours does not and gets better, the better that is for the rest of us. But I don't want you, and it's because I do love you, even though I'm probably going to be single for the rest of my life, even though this does not help me with any one of you individually. I still do love and prefer you, and if it's not going to be for my own personal life, then for other black men who are worthy and deserving, and many of them, no, they're not Superman. They're not in the top 20% of any goddamn thing. They're in the top 40 to 50%. They're normal men, and yes, they are deserving. They deserve what I don't deserve from you. They are entitled to you what I'm not entitled to, and what you think you're entitled to from men. That's what I'm telling you. And so in order for you to not push them away and drive them off, because they're not trying to drive you off, black woman, you need to understand certain illnesses that have been imparted to you. And many of you, like I said, you wear the deodorant. You're above this. But what I need for you to do, if that's the case, is go and tell some of these other women how effing stupid their mating selection criteria are. There is one group of people I know of that had the same problem before in history, the Romans. I'm going to illustrate the similarities right now. In ancient Rome, gladiators were property. They were owned. And they were forced to go into the Colosseums, as we know. They lived under the Colosseums because see, each city had its Colosseum. It wasn't just the major one in the city of Rome. But in other cities in the empire, Colosseums were built and they were usually smaller and they had less. You understand. But if they could build the holding cells underneath, then they built the holding cells underneath to hold to house and hold the gladiators. They were kept underground. When they saw sunlight, it was to go and fight in the arena. And they had to kill each other. And that's where the problem comes in. Rome became a decadent, bloodthirsty society as we know it today. as history bears witness to, and even those who don't know history know about this. So rich women, and understand this, in ancient Rome, women could have businesses, I think, but they almost never did have businesses that made them rich. So in ancient Rome, rich women paid money to go and sleep with gladiators. They paid guards to let them have access to the gladiators that won the fights. Now, I want you to stop and think about how traumatizing it would be for a gladiator to be put into an arena with someone he probably knew because they lived together, forced to fight. He kills the other one, and that's the only reason he's alive. Forced to kill what may have been his friend. Then when he comes back later on and heals up from his own injuries, a rich woman comes down. That means she was spending another man's money, her father's, brother's, or husband's money, to pay to the guards to sleep with him like he's a piece of meat. She may be attractive, she may not. The point is, he has to kill in order to be attractive to a woman. And then she'll pay. I want you to stop and think about how traumatizing that would have been for the man. Now, these liaisons were bound to lead to some pregnancies, and we know that trauma can be passed on epigenetically. And I wonder how much of this trauma made its way into the future generations of Southern Europeans. I wonder about that at times, because we know later on the Western Europeans, which were the extension of ancient Rome, went around and colonized. We know that. Now, also, something else was done in ancient Rome. Female slaves were used to control male slaves. This was also not known. And if they failed, male slaves would be killed. This is also not talked about a lot. The other thing that happened during slavery in ancient Rome was that men and women, slaves, were raped. People don't talk about this, but this story begins to sound familiar, doesn't it? The one difference is that the technology was different. Two differences were the technology and the language spoken. These separate Roman slavery from the slavery in the Americas. And even then, it's not a complete separation, because in much of the Americas, the languages were derived from the Latin language: French, Spanish, Portuguese. So from the slavery in the Americas going back to the slavery in Rome, the differences were the languages and the technology, but the things that the slaves had to live through were the exact same. And also, American slavery became race-based, reserved only for black people after a certain time, early on in the history of the colonization, and whereas Roman slavery was never race-based. Now, do you understand what's going on? Now, do you see what's happening? Do you get it at this point, people? See, look. Black women, when these things happened, this hybristophilia, this love of excessively violent men, and this insistence that only they were worthy of, frankly, busting nuts on your cervix and fathering the next generation, this led to a deterioration. When the criteria for the next generation became this, it led to a degeneration of all the following generations. Rome fell. Great. Good. It couldn't have fallen fast enough. I just wish they hadn't reached the heights that they reached before they fell, because now they still have an influence on us. But now we're going down the exact same goddamn effing path. And I'm sitting up and I'm looking at sisters say only the tallest, only the wealthiest. I'm looking at a majority of African-American women say this to many African-American men. And it's to the point that a lot of men are starting to buy into this, that, oh, well, women are just that way and they can't help it. See, I'm going to tell you something, too, as well. You may like pickup artists to a certain extent because they encourage men to keep trying to get at you, but those men have to inadvertently insult you the way you've insulted yourself in order to go and tell other men, well, keep on trying and work on your game. Because game, the word game, implies deception in this case. You may say, well, I don't see it like that. I can prove that you do see it like that. Imagine that you and I are standing outside of a store owned by your family, and I don't know that your family owns it, and I tell you, hey, you know what? It's hot. Hold up, wait right here, sweet thing. I'm going to go in there and run some game on them and get us some drinks. Just by me saying run some game, you're going to ask me, what do you mean run game? That's my family store. You go in there and you pay for the drinks like anybody else. Because you understand that if I said I'm going to go in and buy the drinks, I don't have to run game, right? You realize game means deception. So don't say that you don't see it that way. That's exactly what it is. Your standards, when you think that game is normal, require men to run deception on you to trick you into liking them. And you co-opted that when you took on the vocabulary, even though it might have been men that started that. It's the same thing with you using the word lame. Women have been using the word lame, white and black, again, for generations. But lame means disabled. It doesn't mean just a normal guy that might be boring. It means disabled. And specifically, the disability would require one's gait or walk to be changed or them to be unable to walk at all. Arm injuries or deformities did not necessarily cause everybody to be referred to as lame. In the classic definition of the word, you could, but it was rarely used that way. It was more commonly used for men who couldn't walk normally or women that couldn't walk normally. Now you sit here using these terms outside of their original definitions, and you were actually kind of insulting yourself. You're saying, I am an animal, and I follow animal instincts when it comes down to mating, completely devoid of any long-term logic that could benefit future generations. I only want the perfect man in some way, form, or fashion to father my children. But when I say perfect, I definitely don't mean morally perfect. Absolutely not there. Moral perfection would actually make him less attractive. That's what you were saying. And when these men, pickup artists, nothing against them personally, but I'm just telling you what is going on at a subconscious level. These men, pickup artists, are telling other men, keep trying, work on this, work on that. That's fine for guys who actually have something that just made them unattractive to women in general, naturally. But that's not what they're saying. They're saying that just keep on going up and up and up and up and up, keep on improving and improving and improving. And they're ignoring the fact that there are other men that don't have to do these things for your attention. What they're doing is they're telling men, listen, men, it's okay for the women to price discriminate. And African-American women, I'm telling you, you price discriminate against certain men. Men who have more morals and a sense of responsibility and a better character. They're the ones that you expect to pay a higher price for access to your womb. And there's no reason for a man to do that. Once a man knows how easy it was for another man to get with you, it is perfectly normal that he's going to stop and say, okay, I'm going to pay the same price, because that's who she is. This is what she likes. This is what she expects. And when he realizes that he's actually expected to do more and try harder, and you've already picked another guy and asked for less from him and done more, that man's going to say, in her mind, I'm inferior to this other guy. Well, B, why don't you go back to him? Leave me alone. I'm not doing all of this for you. And you can't say, well, I wised up when I grew up and I changed my standards. That doesn't work with men. You can say that you learned something, and that's why maybe you would do certain things in order to get certain things out of men. You would make a bigger trade to get more, but that you can't sit up and say, well, I'm going to be who I am, but I'm going to be who I was before, but you just have to do more to get the same things out of me. In other words, you can't just decide, well, I was on time for the last guy, but for you, I'm going to show up late, make you wait a little while, or I'm going to stand you up altogether and I expect you to try to reschedule. That's insulting, and you've been tricked into doing that. White women have too, but like I said, good, let them do it. Sweetheart, my black sister, please do not do this to your men. This is advice I'm telling you that's not going to benefit me. This is advice I'm telling you that's going to benefit the men that are the most likely to stick around, and if it doesn't work out, that are the most likely to still respect you if you respect them and yourselves. This is what I'm telling you. That's why I'm telling you. Black women, stop thinking that black men are leaving African-American women alone because we just don't want black women because it's racial. That's not the way that it is. Black women, you have to realize that your race, not just the nationality of African-Americans, but that the race of black women is something with which other women cannot compete unless they've got black blood. They could be 20% black and they could probably compete. But when they don't have any of your blood, they cannot compete. We know this. Most brothers will tell you, no, I'm not more attracted to a snow bunny than I am to a sister, visually speaking. Many of them will tell you, in order for another woman to come and scoop me up, black women have to kick me off to the side and treat me bad. This is known. This is understood. And I'm one of those guys. I do not tell you anything I'm telling you because I just want an excuse for us to run off to other women. See, I'm against us marrying white folks right off the bat, hands down. That's the enemy. They're everybody's enemy, actually. So I'm against us running off and marrying people who can't stand us and tolerate us. And frankly, quiet as it's kept, white women insult black men even under the conditions in which they do choose a black man, because a white man has to make $154,000 more dollars on average than a white guy does to get with the same white woman, and an Asian man even more. There was a study that showed this. I'm not going to forgive white women for some stuff like that. Oh, so you're going to have a higher income requirement for the black man you would be willing to marry. You'll screw him, but to marry him, you want him to make a hell of a lot more than a white guy's got to make. Even if it's not based out of hatred, it's based on the knowledge that other whites do hate black folks and are going to treat her badly because she married him. So she wants more financial security. Now that's when it's not based on hatred. So I'm like, no. See, we're not going to accept price discrimination when black women do it. I'm definitely not going to accept it from the daughter of slave masters who still hasn't quite gotten it through her thick head that other women are equal to her, even if they're poorer and don't speak the same language. So no, like I said, this is not me just trying to generate excuses. I'm not trying to throw out terms you can't meet so I can say, brothers, go with these other women. No. The only time I'm okay with black men or women going outside the race is when they go for someone of another background that is not white and does not have a bad history with black people. That's the only time I'm okay with it, man or woman. And that's also when the black person is not selected by the black people of the other gender. I'm one of those guys. I freely admit it. I'm one of those men that has that every right to do that, because black women who have liked me don't necessarily pick me. It's not even hatred at times. They've outright told me before. I mean, look, it's, being out in the mall with you, that could start a fight. And I understand it. But this is for other brothers. This is for you, sister, and for other brothers that are ready to do right by you. But, they're not always pre-selected. They're not above 6 feet tall, because most people aren't. They don't make $80,000, because most people don't. Even a lot of white guys don't. They don't have a whole bunch of girlfriends in the past, because most guys don't, period. Quiet as it's kept. These are guys that are very much normal to outward appearances. You got to know them. And then when you know them, a lot of times y'all do like them, but then you still won't pick them because of what your friends say. These are the guys I'm talking about. And this leads me to another thing. See, part of this lowest lane mindset I told you about is it includes a paranoia. And it is an irrational paranoia and fear that you're going to wind up with a wimp and a lame and a pushover. So you have to do extra things to weed them out. So you go for only the most intimidating man with the most resources and heighten everything else. No. That it's okay that you don't want the wimp, the bottom of the barrel. I understand that. It's okay that you wouldn't want that. The pushover, the one that won't and can't do anything for you at all, even protect you. But what I want you to understand and realize is that fear of that is very irrational. Most of your normal men not only would not be forced to protect you in the first place, but they would do so if need be. Many of them would, especially if they know that you're on their team. Especially if they know that you are, if you show them the good person that you're capable of being, and that's what you treat them with once the two of you are attracted to each other. You show them that. Many of them will defend you. I've seen it with my own eyes when it does happen. It's rare that it's necessary, but I've seen it happen with my own eyes. I saw a man, he and his wife are both highly educated. So they're in that regard, they're equally yoked. But other than that, they're actually both very normal people. She's very nice to look at. The wife is. Sorry for judging your wife, dude. I'm just saying it as a compliment. And so they are very normal people in this regard. But the one time someone did say something about his wife, this man got in his face and said, "Hey, bro, watch your mouth." I don't walk around saying anything about your wife, except that I feel sorry if she's stuck with you. And he defended her. Now, the way that the mating goes on right now, the mate selection criteria that Western women have right now would be based on an assumption that this man would not defend a woman and could not do it and doesn't have the courage. But that's not the way it is. A lot of this is a paranoia. So sisters, take this, what I'm saying. If you feel offended by this, good. That means you needed the advice. Share it. If you did not feel offended by this and you thought, well, okay, it's not offensive, but I knew this already. Good. Share it. In any case, share this. I don't get anything out of this. I don't live in the U.S. anymore. I already knew from beforehand that this is not going to help me out. And if I did live in the U.S., it still wouldn't make a difference in my own personal life. So what I'm telling you is for your benefit and for the benefit of other black men. Take this and run with it and keep it out of the ears of white women. Let them and their own community sort these things out. They don't need my advice anyway. Frankly, I don't even want them hearing my voice a lot of times because of safety reasons. But I'm going to tell you now, sisters, take it. Brothers, share this with some women you know. Brothers, if you got a sister, a niece, or an aunt, or any lady relative that's out here picking the worst dudes for reasons like this, let them hear this message. And I'm sorry for how long it took to say it, but I wanted to do justice to the message. I've already spent 2 hours trying to condense this. So another thing too, sisters, I want you to realize this is that brothers, when they do leave African American women, usually they go to black women of other nationalities. Then after that, and this is shown in statistics or in the marriage studies, then after that they go to non-white women, other non-white women, then white women. The chances of them going to a non-white woman for marriage and another non-white woman, and a white woman is about equal. When it comes to marriage, I don't have the dating statistics, but I want you to understand and realize that you are not seen as being less attractive intrinsically or less beautiful. You're not seen as being born this way or genetically this way. There are a few guys that might say something like that. Even other black men would call them coons if they said it. You can only run men off from you. The only way you can do it is by manifesting the trauma that we have all suffered and refusing to get treatment and help for it and fighting the trauma, letting the trauma control you, so to speak. We've been traumatized, black men and black women, American and non for that matter. Even in the continent, colonization traumatized them. In Melanesia, where they've also been for tens of thousands of years, colonization traumatized them, and slavery did, because believe it or not, they were enslaved. Yeah, they would be kidnapped by the British colonizers before they became colonies and then transported to Australia. Because it wasn't beneficial to try to enslave the Aboriginal Australians, the black Australians themselves, because they could escape and go somewhere else. But it was beneficial to go to Papua New Guinea next door, kidnap them, take them to Australia, or go to Solomon Islands and do that. So they've been through the trauma. We've all been through it. It is strictly the African American woman that has allowed the trauma to control them as much as it has. And that's partially because other things were done psychologically to test our community in the United States. I'm not faulting you for what someone else did. I'm just telling you, you need to be more aware of what other people might want to benefit from and how they may want to benefit from you, so that you can turn and you can stop these things and not pass them on to your kids and not drive your men away in the process. Because that's what's happening right now. They tricked you, you fell for it, and in the end you wound up driving away your own men. That's what wound up happening. I'm not saying this with hatred again. I'm simply saying it so that we can put a stop to it. The dumb things and the bad things that brothers have been doing, we know they've been doing it. And they're being called on it usually when you're not even around, to be honest with you. But the other thing, too, is that there are a lot of times when we don't know what certain brothers are doing because sisters don't tell what a guy's doing at the time he's doing it. That's the other thing, too. Sisters may not say, well, my man is doing X, Y, and Z. And at the end of the day, one of the things that has to be understood is you chose these dudes. You got guys who don't do this stuff and they're single for years. You got guys that do these things and they go from one woman to the next because they're being chosen. And after they've been chosen enough times, they don't even have to approach the next woman. As soon as they're single, they start getting approached. This is true. Sounds stereotypical negatively, but it is true. We've all witnessed this. All of us have witnessed this if we've lived long enough. You got men who, because of their bad habits, get chosen by women and eventually get pursued by them. That's the real truth of the matter. You got guys that I ain't even gonna get started on it. But at the end of the day, it boils down to this. The black men who have bad mate selection criteria wind up having to live with the consequences, and nobody's going to sympathize with them. No one's going to heroicize them or lionize them at all. No one's going to do it. The sisters that choose the bad dudes, they're not necessarily being told. It's a new phenomena from what I'm hearing, relatively new, in which men are now saying to them, hey, look, you picked this, you picked him. 3 approached you when you chose this one here. You've been doing this since you were in your teens. Stop complaining about it. This is a new phenomena. And I know because I was looking to try to find it on YouTube. And I didn't start to hear about it till about 2016. Actually, it took me until 2017 to find videos that had been posted up 2014 and 2015. It took a while for them to show up in search results, so I know what's going on. Anyway, I've talked long enough. Sisters, yes, I do love you. Other brothers do too. Most of them do. It's up to you. The ball's in your court. Take this and share it with the others that need it. I hope that I really do hope that the message goes far, because the messenger, me, is unimportant. But take this message and help somebody else out with it. I mean, this has got to be known. It's got to be understood. Black men are already facing the consequences of bad decisions we make. We're not going to get away with them in most cases. But ain't nobody saying to sisters, look, this is how you're sending a message to these men that you say ain't fit. You can't sit up here and run after one guy and you pursued him. You can't say to all these men when you're 12, I like a guy that's nice and knows how to treat a woman. And then at 13, you pursue a guy that does none of this and does all of the opposite. And then at 16, you're still doing it, or you've already had you already had one's child. And then at 35 and 36, you decide, well, I think I need something different. And then you go to the guy that was trying to be what you said that you liked in the first place and saw you pursue this other dude. There was none of that. That's the way you drive men off. That's one way to do it. It's happening to white folks, but like I said, good. For us, you're going to mess around and make that mistake, and you're going to wind up thinking that all black men hate black women when in fact that's not what's going on. So spread this. Let them know. Either you one who didn't need this advice, you can share it, or you one who needed this advice, you can share it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I hope that this has been a benefit.